Hi everyone. This is the last Manga Monday of 2022, and the book I have for you today is pretty seasonal, and it is called To Your Eternity. And the book begins in the frozen north somewhere, and the person we meet first is not actually a person, but an orb. And when the orb is sent to Earth, what we find is it can replicate anything. So at first, it starts out as a rock, and then it meets a dying wolf. So then after that, the former orb turned rock turns into the wolf. And the wolf, just because it was dying, it was wounded, well, this is the first thing that the orb has been that has been alive, that can feel pain. So it has to heal from this injury, and once it does, it starts just kind of wandering. But eventually, finds a human, and this is the human that knows the wolf. These two have lived together. And this boy, he's all on his own. He's waiting for the rest of his tribe to come back. What we find is he was left behind to care for the older people who could not travel. And so now those people have died, and this young man is left alone. And so he's planning. He's been making plans to catch enough fish and get ready to make this long, long journey to find out where the rest of his people went. And so he and the wolf, they go. First they, do some prep work, catch some fish. And the wolf, again, this is a creature that doesn't know really what it's not supposed to do. So at first doesn't understand this is a thing that does not talk. And the boy, being all alone, just doesn't really think this is an odd moment, even though, after saying, see, well then, okay, the wolf, see? That's kind of a strange moment, but again, he's not that surprised. It's like, this is my only companion, so okay, fine. And as the story goes on, what we find is, okay, they set off. First, the boy has drawn the two of them. And over the course of this journey, they find a lot of marks that seem to suggest, okay, we're going the right way. There's people this way. We just need to keep going this way. And that's fine until the boy gets hurt. And after he's injured, he's thinking, okay, well, fine, I'm just gonna bandage myself up. It's a scratch, it's no big deal. And they keep going, and eventually, they get to a place where they find this mark, where, okay, whatever happened on this journey, it seems that this is maybe where it ended, or people realized we have to turn back, but none of them ever came back. So there is this mystery of what happened to the people. And for the boy, this is tough, because, he has proof that, okay, this is the last place everyone was, but I don't know where they are now, or if they're even still alive. Like, I think I might be all alone. And so, still injured, the boy, he's able to make his way back home. But again, it's just him and the wolf. And the two of them, what ends up happening is this boy, he's kind of getting towards the end of his life, maybe. And for the wolf, well, after the boy passes on, he becomes this friend, this only other creature the wolf has ever known, and sets off himself. And we find, okay, well, traveling doesn't always go super well for this creature because there are other dangerous things out there. But this is like just about halfway through the book. So halfway through, we meet a little girl, and her name is March. And March lives in a place where every year a child has to be sacrificed to this creature. And it is a giant bear. And this thing, Oniguma. And it's supposed to get a meal every year. And March, it is explained to her that, well, if you don't do this, we're gonna have to pick another kid. And March really doesn't want to do this. Obviously, once it is explained to her, you're not gonna get to grow up. March is a kid who's always played at having kids. She has an older friend who makes stuffed animals, and they play with these. And yeah, this is just, obviously, this is not what March would choose for herself. So eventually she escapes. She goes along with the whole thing until it gets to the point where, oh, I'm in the woods, I'm far enough away from the village, I don't think they're gonna be able to go back and get another kid, I'm just gonna run. And this is when March finds, she happens to stick her hand in a creek. she's washing her face, just, thinking, okay, I couldn't act like a grown-up. I couldn't just accept my death as a small child, and finds the remains of the wolf turned boy. Now, again, this is a creature that doesn't really understand death per se, and this is because it is immortal. And so even though it kind of let its physical form at this point just sort of break down, as soon as it encounters another life form that starts talking to it, another human, okay, well, basically grows back into a human again, and can't talk at this point. Like, up until now, this is a creature who has been a wolf and has become a human just because that was the last creature it knew, the last thing that it encountered and spent time with. Obviously, it had a run-in with this giant bear, Oniguma, but with March, this is the second person ever to really talk to it. And so March is trying to figure out what she's gonna do. She's wandering around the forest. She's finding food, and she's sort of, in doing this, also teaches the boy, this is food, you eat it, because it hasn't been doing that. Like, it would eat as a wolf because the human boy would eat. But we get the sense that, okay, well, it maybe just has stopped doing that in the absence of being around another person. So now, okay, it's starting to recognize hunger. It's starting to recognize other things about being alive. And March sort of, in eventually being caught, she's trying to, like, teach this boy that she has just found and can't speak. Okay, I'm gonna teach you some things. I'm not your mom, but I can sort of tell you words and other stuff that I know. And meanwhile, March has a friend out there who doesn't want her to be sacrificed, and she knows that, okay, well, I have to do something. And, this is the giant bear, this is Oniguma, and it's this terrifying thing that the whole idea is we have to have a sacrifice. This thing will kill more people if we don't offer someone up to it. So eventually March is caught, and she is able to get to this ceremony. She's given something that is drugged, so she goes to sleep, and she's waiting. Again, she's passed out. She doesn't know that she's, like, on this altar waiting to be sacrificed. But, her friend is there, this girl, and she decides, okay, I'm gonna try and save this little kid who's not even had a chance to be alive. And at this point, our friend the boy shows up. He's followed them, and the bear just literally attacks, bites his head off, but he's immortal, so he can just kind of grow it back. And when he starts trying to fight, he turns back into a wolf. He's able to change shape pretty quickly at this point. And so there's this big battle, and eventually the bear is defeated. And so for these two, the girls, it's agreed that, well, you can't go back to your village. That's not gonna work. We're gonna go to our country. The people who come to do the sacrifice are actually from another nation. They've come here, they're gonna go back, you're gonna come home with us, or you're gonna die. Those are your choices. So March and her friend agree, yep, we're gonna do this. And there's the wolf again, and this is something that March has taught it. She gives it some fruit, and the very end of the book is the wolf saying thank you. So this is just the first volume. This is a very eventful series because you have this creature that makes these friends, but then inevitably outlives its friends because it's immortal and the people around it aren't. And also, this is sort of taking place in a time, this is the distant past at this point. As the series goes on, we get into more recent times. But at this point, okay, we're at the point in human history where you get a scratch and it could get infected and you die from that. You can die from lots of things, but this creature does not. And so it's learning about being human. At first, it's just imitating humans, but as time goes on, it's making friends and it's figuring out what life is, or what kind of life it wants to have, how it wants to maybe take care of the people around it, because it knows, okay, I can protect these people to a point, I can do things that they can't, but no matter what I do, they're not going to live forever. So it's a really interesting book. I think I read the first 4 when they came out in 2018. And yeah, you start out in this sort of frozen tundra, and then as the book goes on, you go to other places, again, alongside the main character, who can be whatever it wants, whoever it wants, but mostly takes the form of this boy, at least in the early part of the series. So if you're looking for kind of an interesting sci-fi adventure, check it out. And thank you for watching. I will see you again next year.